Welcome, my sleepless historian. You've found your way to Anastasia's Whisper, a quiet corner of the night where boring history becomes bedtime story, and ancient mysteries are told softly, just for you. This is sleep history, gentle, cozy, and just mysterious enough to make you wonder what's still hidden beneath the waves. Before we begin, feel free to like this video and subscribe, not just to support the channel, but so you can always find your way back to this sanctuary. Anytime you need rest, calm, or a whisper from the past. And if you feel like sharing, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is for you. It warms my heart to see this quiet circle of dreamers stretch across the world. Tonight, we'll sink gently into the stories of sunken cities, Atlantis, Heracleion, Doggerland, lost civilizations that vanished beneath the sea, yet left whispers behind in sand and salt. So lie back, close your eyes, and let the tides of history tuck you in. Before empires had names, before kings wore crowns, before we charted the oceans or built towers that scraped the sky, there was a whisper, a story older than memory, a city older than history, a place that rose in splendor and then vanished beneath the sea. Atlantis. Say the name aloud, even now, and something stirs, a strange familiarity, a half-remembered dream. The first to speak of Atlantis was Plato. The year was around 360 BCE. In two of his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, the philosopher tells a curious tale passed down from Egyptian priests. They spoke of an island kingdom, vast and powerful, that lay beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. The city was shaped in concentric circles of land and sea, wide rings, perfectly engineered, each connected by bridges and gates. At the very center stood a temple to Poseidon, shining with silver walls, ivory carvings, and a roof plated in precious orichalcum, a mysterious glowing metal now lost to time. This was no simple fishing village or coastal outpost. This was a world power, a naval empire that ruled the surrounding islands, expanded its trade, and lived in seeming harmony. But here's where the story deepens, and where the secret capacities of Atlantis come into focus. The Atlanteans, according to Plato, were not just rich, they were advanced. They built vast irrigation networks that diverted mountain water to every part of the island, with artificial channels, floodgates, and basins that could be controlled seasonally. They harnessed hot and cold springs for public baths and healing sanctuaries, suggesting a knowledge of geothermal science long before such a concept was known. Their agriculture was astonishing. Fields laid out with geometric precision, bordered by embankments and divided into exact parcels. They rotated crops. They maintained inland herds and orchards in a balanced ecosystem. They didn't just grow food, they engineered fertility. Their architecture defied nature. Structures were built in layers, with alternating soft and hard materials, clay, then stone, then timber, creating a natural shock absorber for earthquakes. Some claim they even used magnetic stones to stabilize foundations, though whether that's science or myth, we may never know. But perhaps the most haunting detail was their belief in harmony. Every design, every building, canal, law, or tradition followed patterns of sacred geometry. They aligned their temples with stars, They sang hymns in harmonic tones, said to heal illness and calm the mind. And their priests studied vibration. They believed that sound, properly tuned, could open the body to divine knowledge. Atlantis, then, was not just a city. It was a philosophy built into stone. And yet, something changed. Plato says the Atlanteans over generations became arrogant. Their pursuit of virtue gave way to greed. They sought to dominate, to expand. They turned their eyes toward ancient Athens, and as punishment, the gods, or perhaps nature itself, responded. In a single day and night of misfortune, the earth shook, mountains cracked, the sea roared, and Atlantis disappeared beneath the waves. Gone. No ruins were ever found, no inscriptions, no surviving fragments, only the story passed through the lips of a philosopher and into the bloodstream of civilization, and yet it lingers. Because even if Atlantis never truly existed, the idea of it refuses to die. For centuries, explorers searched. In the 19th century, maps placed Atlantis in the middle of the Atlantic. In the 20th, some claimed it was buried under Antarctic ice. Others swore it was in the Caribbean, near Bimini, where strange stone roads lie beneath shallow waters. But perhaps the most compelling theory links Atlantis to a very real ancient people, the Minoans of Crete and Santorini. They too were master builders. Their palaces had indoor plumbing. Their walls held vibrant murals of dolphins, lilies, and women in flowing gowns. And around 1600 BCE, their world was shattered by one of the most violent volcanic eruptions in history. The eruption of Thera, which sent tsunamis racing across the Aegean. A thriving civilization, nearly wiped from memory. Could Plato have heard whispers of this catastrophe, distorted through time, and reshaped it into the moral fable of Atlantis? Or was there something even older? Some theorists point to the end of the Ice Age, around 9600 BCE, the exact date Plato gives for Atlantis's fall. During this period, sea levels rose more than 400 feet as glaciers melted. Entire land bridges and coastal cities may have disappeared forever, buried under what is now the continental shelf. Could Atlantis have been one of those cities? If so, we may never find it, for anything that ancient now lies hundreds of feet underwater, under layers of sediment, coral, and silence. But perhaps that's the point. Maybe Atlantis wasn't meant to be found. Maybe it was meant to remind us, to suggest that once, before Rome, before Egypt, before Mesopotamia, we were more advanced than we remember, that wisdom can be lost, that knowledge, if misused, can sink just as easily as stone. And perhaps the greatest tragedy of Atlantis was not that it fell, but that we forgot what it knew. So now, as you drift into stillness, imagine her. Picture her canals gleaming beneath golden bridges. Hear the wind through stone archways and the sound of sacred bells echoing across midnight water. See the stars reflected in polished marble, and imagine a world that once lived in balance, a world that whispered to the sea. Atlantis may be gone, but her memory still shimmers just beneath the waves, waiting for dreamers like you. They called it the gate to Egypt, the place where gods arrived, and for centuries, no one believed she existed at all. Heracleion, a name lost to time, until the ocean gave it back. Let's drift now to the warm waters of the Mediterranean, just off the northern coast of Egypt, where sunlight filters softly through the sea and something ancient waits in the silence. The city of Heracleion, or Thonis, as the Egyptians called her, was once the most important port in all of Egypt. Centuries before Alexandria, before Cleopatra, before Caesar stepped onto Egyptian sand, there was Heracleion. In her prime, she was legendary. The grand entrance for every ship that sailed to Egypt from the Greek world. A city of canals, causeways, and temples built to honor the gods and welcome kings. And then she vanished. No one knew when, no one knew why. For over 1,200 years, Heracleion existed only in the fragile lines of faded scrolls and second-hand memories. Historians doubted she was ever real, but the sea knew better. In the year 2000, a team of underwater archaeologists led by Frank Godiot were scanning the sea floor off the coast of Abu Qir. They were looking for warships. What they found was an entire city. Beneath just 30 feet of water lay statues, streets, stone doorways still standing in the quiet current. And as their hands brushed away the silt, Heracleion rose again. She had been preserved in silence, like a photograph taken by the sea. Massive granite statues of pharaohs, 20 feet tall, still faced the watery sun. Stone tablets, inscribed in both Greek and ancient Egyptian, rested on the seabed, perfectly legible. And scattered throughout the ruins were gold coins, jewelry, ceremonial jars, and delicate ceramics still intact after 1,000 years. It was not just a port, it was a wonder, and it had secrets. Heracleion, it turns out, was more than just a place for trade. It was a sacred city, a religious gateway. Every foreign dignitary and merchant who wished to enter Egypt had to pass through Heracleion and had to visit the temple of Amun-Gareb, one of the holiest sanctuaries in the land. Here, rituals were performed, sacred oaths were sworn, and divine legitimacy was granted, not just to goods, but to kings. This was where pharaohs received the blessing of the gods before coronation, where the line between government and divine order blurred. But even more fascinating were the city's hidden capacities. Heracleion was built on soft, unstable soil, the kind of land that today would terrify any engineer. And yet, the ancient Egyptians constructed monumental temples, marketplaces, and harbors there, and kept them standing for centuries. How? They used a system of underground wooden supports and mud brick lattice foundations, allowing the city to float slightly on the shifting ground. This design absorbed tremors from earthquakes and redistributed the weight of the stone structures across flexible platforms, something modern architects now study. They also developed subsurface drainage networks beneath the buildings, keeping water from eroding the foundations, a form of coastal resilience thousands of years ahead of its time. And in Heracleion's warehouses, divers found bronze weights, standardized tools, and receipts engraved in stone. This was a city that had mastered both the spiritual world and the economic world. Trade flowed like the tides: olive oil, wine, papyrus, spices, cedar wood from Lebanon. And so did belief. Amulets, ritual implements, and sacred boats carved in gold were uncovered in near-perfect condition, revealing that Heracleion wasn't just a gateway to Egypt, it was a gateway to the divine. But like Atlantis, Heracleion was not meant to last. Between the 2nd and 8th centuries CE, a slow catastrophe began. A combination of earthquakes, rising sea levels, and liquefaction, when solid ground turns to liquid mud, caused entire districts to crumble into the sea. The temples sank, the docks disappeared, and one day, the city was simply gone, covered not by sand but by salt water and time. Heracleion became a memory, and then a myth, until divers found her again, sleeping beneath the surface. Today, archaeologists are still uncovering her ruins, bit by bit. Each statue pulled from the water tells a story. Each tablet lifted from the mud whispers a name. And yet, the greatest secret she kept was how much the ancients understood. How to build not just in stone, but in balance, with earth, with water, with the gods. So as you lie back now and drift toward sleep, imagine it. You're sailing toward the Egyptian coast. The sun has dipped low, casting gold over the waves. Ahead, Heracleion rises from the sea like a mirage, columns shining, flags fluttering, and the scent of frankincense on the breeze. You walk through the temple gates barefoot, stone warm beneath your feet, and the priest smiles. Welcome to the city that the world forgot, but the sea remembered. And now, so do you. Sleep gently, historian. We still have far to go. Once upon a time, you could walk from what is now England to what is now the Netherlands without ever touching a boat. There were no borders, no coastlines, just rolling plains, forests, lakes, and rivers, where deer grazed and people hunted in silence. This forgotten world was called Doggerland, Europe's lost heartland. Long before history was written, before the stones of Stonehenge were ever raised, Doggerland stretched like a green bridge across the North Sea, connecting what we now call Britain to mainland Europe. It was real, and it was vast. Archaeologists believe Doggerland once covered over 100,000 square miles, a region as large as modern-day Germany. For millennia, it was home to Mesolithic people, hunters and gatherers who followed the rhythms of the seasons, who made tools of flint, who fished rivers and stalked reindeer across tundra grass. And then it disappeared, but not all at once. The story of Doggerland is not a single catastrophe. It is a slow drowning. It began over 10,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age. Glaciers retreated, temperatures rose, and the oceans began to rise. Inches at first, then feet, then entire river valleys became lakes, then marshes, then open sea. Generation by generation, the people of Doggerland moved to higher ground, but the land kept vanishing. And then came the final blow. Around 6,200 BCE, a massive undersea landslide off the coast of Norway, known as the Storegga Slide, triggered a catastrophic tsunami. Waves surged across the North Sea, washing away coastlines and swallowing entire regions of low-lying Doggerland. What remained was silence. The forests vanished beneath salt water. The plains became sea floor, and the people simply disappeared from the archaeological record. For thousands of years, Doggerland was forgotten. No myths, no legends, just the sea, until fishermen off the British coast began pulling strange things from their nets: antlers, bones, stone tools, even mammoth tusks dragged up from deep beneath the seabed. These were not random. They were clues that told us there had once been a world beneath those gray waters. And now, using sonar, seismic scans, and underwater drilling, scientists are slowly mapping that lost world. They've found the remains of riverbeds, cliff edges, floodplains, and even, recently, what appears to be a sunken forest floor, complete with tree stumps still rooted in place. But the question remains, what did these people know? What secret capacities did they possess, living in a land that disappeared so slowly they could feel it slipping away? The people of Doggerland didn't build pyramids or write laws in stone, but they understood something equally powerful: adaptation. They knew the signs of rising water. They moved in response to tides. Their homes were lightweight, portable, made to follow the land as it changed. They were the first climate migrants in human history. And they didn't just survive, they thrived. For thousands of years, they passed down oral knowledge, sacred paths, seasonal patterns, animal behaviors. They knew which plants cured fever, which mushrooms fed the hungry, which stones could spark fire. They were scientists without books, engineers without cities, and philosophers who looked to the sky and sea to understand the world. And though they left no monuments, their wisdom still lives, buried under layers of mud, silt, and quiet. So now, as you breathe slow and deep, imagine walking across Doggerland. No waves, no engines, just soft ground beneath your feet and the hush of wind through tall grass. You pass herds of wild horses, catch the glint of water in the distance, and hear nothing but birds and breath. You are standing on a continent that no longer exists, and yet somehow you can still feel it, still smell the smoke of a distant fire, still hear the echo of a hunter's call, still know that long before we built cities, we built lives here in a land that slept beneath the sea. Rest now, historian. Doggerland is gone, but not forgotten. Drift now farther east, past the coral gardens of Okinawa, beyond the warm currents of the East China Sea, to a place where the water turns dark and still, and the seabed begins to rise. Beneath the waves, just off the southern coast of Japan's Yonaguni Island, lies something strange, massive, geometric, impossible. A stone structure so precise, so sharp-edged, so deliberate that for decades, no one could agree on what it was. Some say it's a natural formation, the work of waves and time. Others believe it's the ruins of an ancient sunken city. This is the mystery of the Yonaguni Monument. Discovered in 1986 by a local diver searching for hammerhead sharks, the monument lies about 80 feet below the surface. A sprawling set of stone terraces, broad platforms, wide steps, and towering walls. From above, it almost looks like a ziggurat or a stepped pyramid, sculpted not for function but for ceremony. The largest structure is over 150 meters long, longer than a football field. Its edges are razor straight, its corners mathematically perfect, and its walls rise in vertical planes, unnatural in a world shaped by waves. Could this be a coincidence? Or is it something far older than we've ever imagined? Some archaeologists believe the structure was carved by human hands, that it dates back to a time when sea levels were lower, as much as 10,000 years ago. If that's true, then Yonaguni would be one of the oldest known monuments on Earth. And if it was man-made, then someone, long before recorded history, had a remarkable capacity, a secret knowledge of stone. The people of Yonaguni, if they existed, must have understood tectonic alignment. The monument appears to face true south, with certain angles aligning with celestial events, much like the ancient pyramids of Egypt or the temples of Mesoamerica. Could they have practiced megalithic engineering, moving and shaping massive blocks without metal tools? Some divers claim to see carved symbols in the stone. Others report what looks like a human face sculpted into one of the walls. There are channels that resemble roads, and what some call a grand staircase, wide enough for a procession. If any of it is real, then the Yonaguni monument holds something we've barely begun to understand. An entire civilization hidden in plain sight beneath the ocean. But there's more. Some Japanese researchers believe that the monument is only the tip of a much larger complex, that beneath layers of sand and coral, other structures, halls, columns, statues may still be waiting. And yet, no tools have been found, no bones, no definitive inscriptions, no artifact to tie it to a known people or culture. That's what keeps the debate alive. Is it natural, or is it legacy? Was this a place of worship, a fortress, a sacred calendar carved in stone? Or is it simply a masterpiece of geology, a chance formation shaped by eons of oceanic erosion? For now, we don't know. But perhaps that's the gift of Yonaguni. It asks us to wonder, to reconsider what we think we know about the past, to imagine a time when human hands shaped the earth in ways we've forgotten how to see. And as you float in this quiet space between certainty and mystery, picture it. The sun rising over ancient Japan, priests dressed in white, climbing stone steps to greet the morning star, a ritual, a chant, and the ocean gently brushing the base of the monument, as if whispering, "I will remember." Now, the waters are still, the monument sleeps, but its shape remains, its edges defy erosion, and its presence, even in silence, still calls us back. Close your eyes now, feel the pressure of the deep, and let your breath slow with the rhythm of the waves. Whatever Yonaguni is, it is older than memory, and perhaps older than myth. Rest easy, historian. More secrets await. Now, let's turn toward the west coast of India, to the Gulf of Kambat, where the tide hums with salt and memory. Beneath these warm waters lies a city made of legend and rediscovered in silence. It was once said that this city had palaces made of crystal and silver, walls so smooth they reflected the stars, and gardens that floated perfumed by sacred lotus flowers. Its name was Dwarka, the city of Lord Krishna. For centuries, the story of Dwarka lived only in India's epic texts, especially the Mahabharata, where it was described as Krishna's kingdom, a shining metropolis built overnight by divine architects. But like Atlantis, many believed it was just a myth, until the ocean whispered otherwise. In 1983, archaeologists diving near the modern town of Dwarka on the Gujarat coast began to find something unexpected. Stone blocks, long walls, a grid pattern on the seabed, as if a city had been gently placed there and then submerged by time. Later, in the Gulf of Combat, even more evidence emerged: pillars, anchors, artifacts, some dating back as far as 9,000 years. If confirmed, this would make Dwarka one of the oldest known urban settlements in the world. But this city wasn't just old, it was sacred. According to legend, Krishna founded Dwarka after fleeing conflict in Mathura. It was said to have had 900 palaces, each adorned with gems, each glowing with light. But it wasn't vanity, it was devotion. Krishna built the city to bring peace, to shelter his people, to show that harmony between heaven and earth could be built, brick by brick. And what makes Dwarka truly remarkable are the secret capacities written into its myth, and perhaps its architecture. It is said that the city was built over water, a kind of island citadel with complex harbors and underwater channels. Krishna's engineer, divine or not, were said to have mastered the sea. Some scholars believe this legend may reflect a real understanding of tidal engineering. Submerged stone anchors have been found offshore, suggesting the presence of organized docks, trade ships, and sea routes. The stones were precisely cut with grooves, evidence of standardized design, the kind needed for a maritime economy. This wasn't just a coastal village, it was a planned city, a cultural capital, a port where commerce, ritual, and philosophy met. And like Heracleion in Atlantis, Dwarka too was lost to the sea. According to the texts, after Krishna's departure from the world, the sea slowly rose and claimed the city. This echoes real geology. Sea levels along India's coast have risen dramatically since the end of the last ice age. Entire settlements, once inland, are now submerged under silt and salt. But Dwarka's memory never disappeared. Even today, pilgrims come to modern Dwarka to honor Krishna, to bathe in sacred waters, to believe that the city beneath their feet, or beneath the waves, still holds a trace of something divine. As you settle now into rest, imagine it. A city built not in defiance of nature, but in conversation with it. Temples of white sandstone, waves lapping gently at marble steps, and the distant music of conch shells echoing through sea breeze and sacred air. The sun sets over the Arabian Sea, and for a moment, just a moment, you think you can see it, glittering on the horizon. Dwarka, alive, breathing. And then it's gone, like a dream, like a prayer answered in silence. Sleep now, gentle traveler. We have one final stop on this journey beneath the waves. Come now to warmer waters, to the shimmering blue of the Caribbean Sea, where the breeze smells like salt and sugar cane, and legends drift through the waves like forgotten songs. Our last stop is not a myth, not a temple, not a tale handed down in sacred text. It is a real city, preserved by disaster, sealed in silence, and known in its time as the wickedest city on earth. Welcome to Port Royal. The year is 1692. The streets of Port Royal are loud, hot, crowded. Ships from Spain, England, and beyond pull into harbor daily, their hulls heavy with gold, spices, and secrets. This is a pirate city, a chaotic jewel in Jamaica's southern coast, a place of taverns, brothels, gambling dens, and rum. So much rum. It's said that at its peak, Port Royal had more bars per capita than anywhere else in the world. But what made it so alluring was its freedom. Here laws were soft, gold was hard. Buccaneers like Henry Morgan docked their ships here and drank away fortunes. Smugglers and merchants lived side by side. Even clergymen turned a blind eye or raised a glass. And yet, beneath the noise, beneath the glitter of coin and the clash of tankards, Port Royal held unseen knowledge. Its people, for all their chaos, had built a thriving economic engine, an early version of what we might now call a free market city. Its docks were state-of-the-art, wooden piers that could load and unload hundreds of ships per month. Its records were fastidiously kept, with trade networks spanning half the globe. Currency moved fast. Decisions were made faster. They had discovered something powerful, that lawless freedom could still produce order if the price was right. But the earth does not forget. On the morning of June 7th, 1692, the ground began to shake. At 11:43 a.m., a massive earthquake struck the region. Buildings collapsed, the sea pulled back, and then surged forward. Within minutes, 2/3 of Port Royal had sunk into the sea. The ground beneath the city had liquefied, a phenomenon now known as soil liquefaction, causing entire neighborhoods to slide into the harbor like ships on greased rails. Witnesses described people vanishing before their eyes, streets opening beneath their feet, stone churches crumbling as if made of dust. More than 2,000 lives were lost that day, and Port Royal, once a shining jewel of the Caribbean, was drowned in silt and silence. But here's what makes it so haunting. Much of it remains intact, underwater. Divers have found wooden structures still standing, preserved by the layers of sediment and salt water. Ceramics, bottles, books, even a pocket watch, recovered decades later, frozen forever at the exact time the earthquake struck. 11:43. It is one of the most perfectly preserved underwater time capsules in human history. And beneath the ruins lie hidden truths of a city that understood how to thrive on the edge of law, how to move money like water, and how to live fiercely, even briefly. Port Royal's secret capacity wasn't its buildings or its trade. It was its people's ability to create something wild and functional. It was an experiment in freedom, too fast and too fragile to last. But for a moment it worked. And now it sleeps beneath the Caribbean, not erased, but remembered in every clink of gold coin, in every whispered tale of pirates and kings. So let's leave it there, resting. Imagine the lanterns still swinging in flooded taverns, the pews of the sunken church dusted in silt, A silver goblet sitting quietly on the sea floor, never spilled, never taken, and a city perfectly paused. Good night, Port Royal, and good night, dear traveler. Your journey beneath the waves has come to an end. You've wandered through myths and facts, temples and taverns. You've seen the secret capacities of ancient worlds and listened to the ocean hold their names. Now let sleep rise around you like soft water. Let memory drift, and let history tuck you in. So many cities, so many seas, and yet, beneath the coral, beneath the broken pillars and swallowed streets, we didn't just find ruins. We found something more fragile: presence, people, quiet, clever, brilliant people trying to shape the world with stone and tide, with geometry and faith, with rituals whispered into saltwater wind. This is what history leaves behind, not just temples and ports, but whispers. And tonight, we follow those whispers down into the deep, into lost harbors and sacred cities, into vanished civilizations and sunken dreams, places once filled with life and light, now gently asleep beneath the waves. If this slow journey brought your thoughts a little peace, if the rhythm of ancient water helped your mind soften, you're always welcome to return. The full History for Sleep playlist waits in the comments below, with more sleep stories for grown-ups, more gentle history, and more forgotten wonders, retold in a hush. And if you'd like to find your way back here again, on nights when the world feels too loud, or your thoughts won't let you rest, you can subscribe. This sanctuary will be here, waiting with soft stories and a calm voice. Now, let go of the cities. Let the maps fade. Let the deep settle around you like a blanket of blue. Breathe in, breathe out, and let the ocean of time carry you to dreams. Good night, dear dreamer. Sleep gently, and may the quiet echoes of history keep you company until morning.